to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No. I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this time I'm doing the intro, so let's get into it. Yeah, this is Inside the Film Room. Welcome back. This is my last episode.
Man.
I know. It's the end of an era, 2.5 years of just nothing but great content for me and Zach. This is our 76th episode. We've done quite a lot, but, you know, we'll talk a little bit about kind of my farewell tour later. But
it's fitting that this is the first that today The Last Dance just arrived on Netflix in time for your last dance, Jake.
Last dance, I'll tell you. But, you know, we'll talk a little bit towards the end about like what's next and where to look from here. But before we get into that, we are going to do news, of course, and then we're going to be reviewing my favorite movie ever. We've mentioned it a lot. It was upon Zach's request. It was a smart idea for him to decide for my last appearance as a co-host on the podcast to do Iron Giant, which is still, I think, it's still unequivocally my favorite movie ever made. And then we are going to take a walk down memory lane, a little stroll through our top 5 Inside the Film Room moments on this podcast. Zach, how you doing today?
It's an emotional day. I'm sad, but nothing but happy memories to look back on. I'm proud of how far we've come. I'm excited to send you out with a bang. We almost got to send you out with an even bigger bang, though, because today we were supposed to be reviewing Tenet.
Yeah.
That was supposed to hit theaters this past Friday. Of course, that's not the case. Who knows when that'll happen, but that would have been a good one to go out on, too.
Yeah, that would have been. And I think that, you know, and of course we'll talk more about this as we get into it, but, you know, just how far this thing has come is really crazy. You know, we started it off smoke, and then now it's like we got a full website. We got Southeast regional correspondent.
A nationwide enterprise.
Yeah. But, you know, before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to everyone that has stuck with us this long and people that have found us along the road. This has been quite an impactful time in my life working on this podcast with Zach, and it's been a lot of fun.
That it has. Let's get down to it then with this episode. Jake, you're at the beach. How is that? I assume this is one last East Coast hurrah before you head west?
That's what it is. I had not been to the beach since my senior year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah, so it's been quite some time, but we're at the beach. It's good. Yeah, it's good. How's the mountains?
It was fun. I got to do a little. Rebecca and I went up, did some hiking, did some sightseeing and stuff. It was really nice weather. A little getaway before the puppy arrives on Wednesday. I'm so excited. 3 days until Remy is here, my little chef.
Zach is actually he's dog watching our puppy because we're going to be at the beach until this coming Wednesday or this coming Tuesday. So I get
to use Indy as a warm up on Monday and Tuesday before Wednesday gets here.
Yeah,
exciting.
Well, that's it. You want to get into some news?
Yeah, we had some pretty exciting stuff here straight off the bat. I think the biggest one for this week is The Gray Man. That is Netflix's upcoming spy thriller. They're shelling out the big bucks for it, $200 million. You've got Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans in charge. I mean, that's that's an attention grabber right there. I think that what's it called? Whatever the Red movie is with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot, that was currently like the highest budget film for Netflix, but now I think this is surpassing it. But it's written and directed by the Russo brothers based on a series of bestsellers from Mark Greaney. I am excited about that. It's a match made in heaven all around, I feel like.
Absolutely. I mean, I still think the best MCU film I think still to this day is Winter Soldier. And that is, directly in the vein of what this sounds to be. It's an espionage, globe-trotting spy thriller. The Russo brothers have done, if they've done anything right, it's been action. And they've done, the sequences and the set pieces in Winter Soldier were unbelievable. And it was just, the storytelling was very smart. It was very economical. They did some really cool things with it. And then working with Chris Evans, who is, who went down sort of the spy route with Winter Soldier, just doing that. And then Ryan Gosling, who is really kind of the Hollywood Swiss Army knife just because of his versatility. I think that this is going to be something that is going to be really, really cool if they can do it right. And I think they will. They definitely have the pieces for it. Yeah,
I think that rapport between the leading man and the directors, the writers, that's important. I think Chris Evans tweeted something like 5th time's the charm, 6th time's the charm, something, whatever round this is with the Russo brothers. But you're talking about like the espionage, the like gritty spy thriller. Here's a little plot synopsis they released. It says the gray man follows ex-CIA operative turned killer for hire, Court Gentry, played by Gosling. He's pursued by an old colleague, now nemesis, Lloyd Hansen, Chris Evans. The Russos believe this is going to be like a Bourne-esque, Jason Bourne type story that has the potential to inspire several follow-ups with Gosling's character at the center. And Joe Russo has actually said, it's a quote by him, "The idea is to create a franchise and build out a whole universe. We have all committed to the first movie, and that's got to be great to get us to do the second movie. These are master assassins, and Gosling's character gets burned by the CIA, and Evans' character has to hunt him down." So, sounds a lot like Winter Soldier itself, with like Bucky kind of being burned by one agency, and then they're trying to track him down and set the story straight. So, that sounds like something that is going to be – Netflix just released their like top 10 movies of all time or whatever, and all of them were pretty questionable, but I feel like this one will like rightfully sit at the top.
Yeah, it's got star power. It's got a marketable group of people that have always been marketable since they've stepped into Hollywood. I think it's got the cat and mouse story, when done right, is some of the most exciting stuff in cinema. There's so many films that do it so well, and I think that they have the potential to make something really special here. I know that our group chat was blowing up when this happened. But we were super excited for it. And I think that the excitement for us and for people will continue to grow as we get more details about it.
I will say, quick aside here, that I just finished a book called The Shadows, which is the sequel to the book that I read previously, The Whisper Man. And that they're like a Stephen King style, like horror thriller kind of thing. And The Whisper Man, the rights to that to be a film have been picked up by the Russo brothers. So just another thing on their radar. I don't know if that would be like writing, directing, producing, what their role would be, but just another thing that seems to be in good hands with them. So exciting news all around. Next up, mixed thoughts on this, I think. Noah Centineo has joined Dwayne Johnson in DC's upcoming Black Adam film. Of course, this is the anti-hero, the antagonist to Zachary Levi's Shazam. This has been on The Rock's radar for nearly a decade now. Eventually it will happen. Break this down for me, Jake. Who is Atom Smasher, the character that Centineo will be playing?
Yeah, so Atom Smasher, his alias is Albert Rothstein, and basically I don't really know much about him. I know that he made his first appearance in I think in the 70s or the early 80s, and he is like, his power is basically just what he can do is he has the ability to manipulate his size, strength, and durability, so he can grow big, he can grow small.
Sounds kind of like Ant-Man.
Like Ant-Man, yeah, except it's a little bit, his powers are a little bit more complex than that. And the I guess kind of the media where I'm most familiar with him is Justice League Unlimited, the animated series. And he was really cool in that. I think it's a strange choice.
What is his status in like the hierarchy of characters?
He's like a lower tier Justice superhero.
So it's not like this is going to be right up there with next to Dwayne as like the second star here.
Yeah, no, but at the same time, when Iron Man was cast, when Iron Man was in development, nobody really knew who Iron Man was, and the people that didn't like him because of Civil War. He was just a complete asshole in the graphic.
Right.
So, Marvel did a great job of casting someone that was sort of an unknown, polarizing comic book character, and there's no reason why they couldn't do the same with Atom Smasher. It's really about what his character will be in terms of as a role, because this isn't the Atom Smasher movie; it's the Black Adam movie. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly they do with his character and how they think about introducing him into the DC universe.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know he's mainly known for Centineo, is like for the To All the Boys I've Loved Before movies. I haven't seen those, but he just kind of seems like the Gen Z kind of person. So maybe just like appealing, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I feel like he has you hear that name and he's kind of there's a reputation around it, or just for me at least, there's a connotation around him of being kind of a Gen Z, YouTuber kind of guy. Yeah. Is that, I don't know if you're in the same boat there.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a strange cast. Because I'm never going to discredit an actor's ability, because, Ryan Gosling was in The Notebook, and look at him now.
Right.
If we just thought people were one thing, then we wouldn't have gotten one of the best working actors alive. So, I definitely believe in the ability for actors to be versatile. But then again, it's just a matter, because what I'm reading right now is that Black Adam and Atom Smasher are apparently longtime adversaries and longtime rivals. And I guess that sort of comes to a head when Black Adam reforms to join the Justice Society of America. So they might go that route. It's just, it's something that we've heard about for quite some time, and we're just getting news. And I think it's similar to the news that we get with the Gray Man. It's just the more that we get, the more we'll be able to see what exactly this is going to end up being.
I'm going to go ahead and put my money on The Rock, though, if him and Noah Centineo are squaring off.
Yeah.
I think I'm going with Black Adam there.
I don't know if anyone has all the time in the world to get on.
He'll have to bulk up seriously in the Iron Paradise.
Yeah, they're going to have to shoot this in 3 years or so, because he's going to need some time to get right.
Next up on the docket, another superhero adjacent story. Mm-hmm. First trailer for Netflix's superhero thriller called Project Power. It's starring Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Dominique Fishback. This hits Netflix August 14th, and it seems to be a little plot synopsis. On the streets of New Orleans, word begins to spread about a mysterious new pill that unlocks superpowers unique to each user. The catch, you don't know what will happen until you take it. While some develop bulletproof skin, invisibility, and super strength, others exhibit a deadlier reaction. Basically, people are taking this pill. Crime is rising because people have new powers, unchecked abilities. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's a local cop, teams up with a teenage drug dealer to get to the bottom of this. That's Dominique Fishback. And then a former soldier with a secret vendetta, Jamie Foxx, he joins to help them fight to restore the power in New Orleans. So, this is just, I wrote that this is the continuation of the Netflix summer blockbuster. We got Extraction, we got The Old Guard. There are no movie theaters this summer. This is just they're pumping it out.
Yeah. The person that wrote this, Mattson Tomlin, is the co-writer for the Batman. He wrote this script, I believe, and he put it on the Blacklist, where it got reviewed and then became one of the top scripts on the Blacklist. Those that don't know the Blacklist are the top unproduced screenplays that have been submitted by a variety of different people. And then it was picked up by Netflix. Mattson Tomlin's a really cool follow on Twitter. I follow him. He's got some really cool insight, and he's been talking about this for quite some time. So it's cool to see footage of it. I think it looks really good. I mean, I love Jamie Foxx. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I really don't think he works enough. And I think the story is something that we haven't seen before. It's interesting. And I think with the saturation, and sometimes, people say the oversaturation of the superhero market, the superhero genre, that there is the ability to tell stories like this, like you said, in the adjacent space, which can be just as engaging and just as intriguing, especially in the time that we're in now.
Did you ever play I think it was called Infamous? They're like PlayStation 3 games, I want to say. It was like another like superhero adjacent kind of thing. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting from this, where it's like kind of like a dark, gritty world. I mean, obviously it's in New Orleans, so I mean it's a real world location, but just like that, this isn't DC, this isn't Marvel. This is kind of its own thing here, that we're just kind of, those aren't the only people that can have superpowers.
Absolutely. And I think that with hopefully the success of this, it will maybe, not only give Netflix confidence to pursue other avenues in terms of the superhero adjacent storytelling format, or even, other studios and other streaming services to maybe do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, I mean, at the very least, this will just be another entertaining watch on Netflix, August 14th, just to keep you through until maybe by then theaters will be open. I know right now Tenet is August 12th. We'll see what happens there, but if not, maybe you'll just be catching Project Power on Netflix.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Netflix, final piece of news here. Fresh off the success of The Old Guard, director Gina Prince-Bythewood is set to helm The Woman King, starring Academy Award-winning actress Viola Davis. Are you familiar with this story?
I am not. I actually had to read about it.
But it sounds thrilling.
Oh, it sounds awesome.
It's like if the Dora Milaje from Wakanda were real life. That's basically what this sounds like.
Yeah. Do you want to fill them in?
Yeah, so this is a historical epic inspired by true events that took place in the kingdom of Dahomey, one of the most powerful states of Africa in the 18th and 19th centuries. The story follows Naniska, played by Viola Davis, the general of the all-female military unit, and her daughter Nawi, who together fought the French and neighboring tribes who violated their honor, enslaved their people, and threatened to destroy everything they've lived for. That sounds freaking awesome.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, it sounds really great. Viola Davis, I think, is also one of the most talented actors working, and has been for quite some time. Gina Prince-Bythewood, as we've seen, has the ability to do some really cool things with action. And I think with a story like this, where they are able to sort of format exactly how they want to tell it and do their own creative vision, it can be something that's super special. So yeah, I mean, everything about it sounds great. It's a story that not many people have heard of, but are really excited about, just because, I mean, we heard it, it just sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is something that can end up being really good.
Yeah. I mean, I was what you touched on, I'm sure there are people that are have studied this, are super familiar with it, have been dying to see this story on screen, or just have people learn about it. But for the general public, I'd be willing to bet that not many people know about it. And so just to have that, just being able to bring knowledge, bring awareness to something that people aren't familiar with, to put it in a entertaining medium, something that sounds as incredible as this to see on screen. I mean, I'm excited for it. And it's always just something that I feel like this is going to be one of those ones where you watch it and then you go home and you Google 8 different things just to try and be like, was that real? Was that how much did they take here with creative liberties? So I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that wraps up our news. And now we are going to get into our review, my last review of my favorite movie, The Iron Giant.
What are we looking at here, Mr. Manley?
This is no meteor. This is something much more serious.
Invaders from Mars.
Hey there, Scout.
Kent Mansley, you work for the government.
I had something for you.
Where did you find that?
Up at the power station.
Hogarth was out there the other night.
Really? See anything unusual, Hogarth?
Nothing unusual, really. So, I guess you're not gonna hurt me, huh? My own giant robot. I am the luckiest kid in America.
Where'd he come from?
He doesn't remember. He's like a little kid.
Little, yeah. Ever hear of Sputnik? It's like that giant thing in the woods. We don't know what it can do.
What are you talking about?
You think this middleman is fun, but who built it? The Russians, the Chinese, Martians, Canadians? I don't care. You are going to tell me about this thing, and we are going to destroy it before it destroys us.
We gotta show them you're good. You are what you choose to be.
I'm Superman.
We must stop it at all costs.
Let's get out of here! Run!
Ready to attack?
My son is out there! We've gotta help him. Hogarth, no! I'm swimming! Ah! Giant?
Oh, God.
I'm gonna let you take the lead here, since this is your favorite movie of all time. This is handpicked by Mr. Lawler for his farewell review.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny because this is a great icebreaker, honestly, when people ask me what my favorite movie is. I think having an answer on hand right away is always sort of
I always stumble with that question. It's so hard.
And the story behind it, of course, is what makes it so special for me. But it's a 1999 animated classic. I still think that if it was released 5 years, 6 years, 7 years after, it would have gotten the hype, the acclaim, everything that it deserved. It was truly ahead of its time. It dealt with deep thematic and social issues that animated films really refused to touch in the 90s. And I think that Iron Giant storytelling did something that, like I said before, few animated films would have hoped to do, is tell an engaging and impactful story that's resonant at the times today, using animation as a medium for that. For me, it holds a special place in my heart. It's actually the first movie that I ever loved. It's the first movie that I ever enjoyed. It's the first movie I remember, which was such a formative experience for me that changed my opinion on film and really kind of set the groundwork for the career that I'm hopefully going to get into as I move to Los Angeles. I remember watching it when I was 7. I don't really remember liking movies before that. I thought they were just overly long. And big
TV guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I really was the big TV guy. I'd watch Batman, the animated series, Justice League, the animated series, all things like that. But then my dad sat me down and I watched The Iron Giant, and I remember crying, as I do still to this day. Every single time towards the end of the movie, I still cry.
Superman.
That's exactly what it is. And I looked up at the sky for who knows how long, hoping to come down.
Just waiting.
I could be Hogarth Hughes. But yeah, I mean, it's such an incredible film. Everyone that I recommend it to and watches just says, and I think the great thing about Iron Giant, which was a downfall when it first came out, is that because not many people have seen it, that when you get to recommend it to people and they get to watch it for the first time, it's such a beautiful film in every respect. And we'll get into it more as we talk about it. But I think a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film.
I think it's really interesting to think about, like, a lot of movies that came out in this window. I think if they weren't Disney movies, they kind of got swept to the side.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like there's just like a vault of movie like this, Ants, Anastasia. Yeah. It's like those like forgotten movies that are like, they seem like, oh, those were Disney movies, weren't they? But then it's like you find out that they weren't, and that it's just like a strange like Bermuda Triangle of movies that just kind of like disappeared and never got the acclaim that they deserve.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It tanked at the box office. It really did. It didn't do well. I don't think the marketing team was confident in its ability to do well because, I mean, as we'll talk about, it's an adult movie. I mean, it really is an adult film, not necessarily in terms of content, but just in terms of narrative, in terms of structure, in terms of the things that they're trying to say with the film.
Especially all the laxative jokes. Very adult there.
But then, of course, it became a cult classic. It was directed by the amazing and wonderful Brad Bird, who
shouts to our guy.
Ratatouille, exactly. Ratatouille, Incredibles, Ghost Protocol. I mean, and Tomorrowland, I still think to this day Iron Giant is his best film that he's ever made. It holds such a dear place in my heart, and he has such a knack for deep, kind of resonant animated storytelling. He did it in Ratatouille. He did it in both Incredibles. He did it here, and I think I am in debt to Brad Bird because without this movie being made, I don't really know where my life would be, and maybe there would have been another movie that would have changed my perspective, but I don't think it would have been in the same way that Iron Giant did.
I think it's super interesting to talk about this movie because of like our juxtaposition there, because like I know that I watched this movie as a child. I probably owned the VHS a bit, but like I don't remember having like a super strong connection to it or anything. This is the first time that I've watched it as an adult, but in preparation for this podcast, where like this is the first time I've like watched it and really remembered it. Like I had the idea of it in my head, hearing you talk about it all the time and stuff, and then like going back to watch, like I didn't really know much about the plot beyond the fact that it was a large iron giant. So I mean, I think it's interesting. Upon rewatching it, like I really enjoyed it as well. I mean, I don't have that strong connection to it as you do, but I can definitely appreciate it as the thematic elements of it, the animation at the time, like the story itself. So I mean, I was a big fan as well.
It's beautiful. It's a little tidbit about Iron Giant is that the town is called Rockwell, Maine, named after the great American painter Norman Rockwell, for his sort of idyllic paintings. And the animation is very much in tune with the paintings that he did. But let's give, for those that haven't seen it, we'll do one last plot synopsis from me.
How am I going to find someone to replicate this narrator voice?
I do not know. Maybe I can just record.
I'll text you every week before a podcast and get you to just send an audio recording.
All right.
One last time.
A giant metal machine drops from the sky and frightens a small town in Maine in 1958, only to find a friend named Hogarth that ultimately finds its humanity by saving the townspeople from their fears and prejudices. Dun, dun, dun.
I think that's great because it's like it's a simple story here. I mean, it's like it's straightforward. It's the simplicity of it is like part of what makes it so great, so effective. That it's just this kind of outsider child, and then this scary, intimidating, gigantic monster that is actually an outsider, scared as well. Like they're very similar in their personalities, and that they learn to overcome those together.
And I think one of the beautiful things about Iron Giant is it's how it examines chance. It's how it examines chance encounters, because if the Iron Giant had landed on course or had not crash landed and didn't have the bump on his head the whole time, then he would have maybe ended the entire Earth. If he had crash landed in, I don't know, in Area 51, he would have became, a military weapon. If he would have crash landed into one of the kids that bullied Hogarth, then he probably would have became some sort of weapon. So it's just everything found itself the right way to make it work. And they do such a great and excellent job and such a sharp job of letting the audience know that this is by chance and that this encounter is something that would happen. I mean, it draws a lot of It draws a lot of inspiration, some direct, some indirect, from Superman's story. So much so that, you know, his the Iron Giant's idol throughout the film is Superman. And I think Superman is indicative of a lot of things. I think most importantly is indicative of truth and justice, and, you know, what they call the American way, and what it boils down to. And, you know, one of the most poignant and powerful lines of the entire film is that you are who you choose to be. And this film
it talks a lot about free will.
Yeah, I think agency is such a huge thing, especially when, a little bit of backstory before I go. So basically, before I go into, basically what happens is that the Iron Giant lands, Hogarth finds them, they develop a friendship, all the while the U.S. military is trying to hunt him down. And then later on in the film, you realize that the Iron Giant is a weapon. We're not really sure what planet he came from. We're not really sure who sent him. But his only objective prior to meeting Hogarth, prior to getting the bump on his head, was it seemed to eradicate the Earth, just because of his advanced weaponry and the ability for him to change. And the whole film plays on that ideology, that especially with the deer scene, which I still think is one of the greatest scenes in animated film ever, is when a group of hunters kill a deer, and then later on Hogarth explains to the Iron Giant about what a soul is and what it means to have one. And dealing with this deep, heady material in a medium that is meant for children, or at least, you know, ostensibly meant for children, is such a smart tactic, because it's not overbearing, but it's conversations that children would have with each other. Because in many respects, the Iron Giant is a child. You know, he doesn't know how to talk. He doesn't really know the ways of this world. He doesn't know what's good, what's bad, what to eat and what to not eat when in Dean's shop. But, you know, these are conversations that children have. You know, it's when parents get nervous when their kid asks what happens when we die. And I think tackling that issue head on and doing it in such a way that is not necessarily giving answers blatantly, but allowing you to kind of think for yourself about what happens, which is, again, part of the agency thing, is what makes this film so impactful and so timeless, you know, 21 years down the road.
And I mean, yet that's all entirely true. And obviously this film is timeless because they're like basically remaking it. I got a lot of vibes from Bumblebee in this. I mean, obviously very different levels of like quality, but the overall story, this is Bumblebee, the Transformers prequel that came out last year or the year before. But I mean, again, that's an outcast girl who finds a machine, a giant robot from outer space that doesn't know how the world works, and together they learn to figure each other out, to how to work together. And I mean, it's like you said, it's a classic story that kind of gets retold over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the great things about it is that we've touched on a little bit, it's the ability to meld the sort of playful journey of a child finding something, because like we've said before, that's done in E.T., it's done in Bumblebee, it's done here, where a child finds something that is not of his own origin, that's more powerful than him, that's something that he does not realize what it is fully, and their friendship and their journey, and to tell it in such a playful, engaging way. But the ability to also merge really, really kind of sharp and resonant stuff about xenophobia, about, fear of other governments, about fear of what your government is capable of. All of this different stuff about, because it's almost satirical in a sense, where you're dealing with the U.S. Army's involvement with the Iron Giant, because all of it is very stereotypical, but not in a way where it feels exhausting. I mean, it makes sense, because this is exactly what our government would do if something like this would fall. And I think being able to tackle those issues head on as well, and talk about a system that needs fixing, a system that is hell-bent on protecting the values of its own interest, instead of understanding something that it doesn't know yet. is something that the Iron Giant does incredibly well.
Do you have, as a movie that means so much to you personally, do you have a favorite scene, or is there, I know you talked about tearing up, is there a specific moment that really does it for you?
Yeah. For me, it's such a hard thing. I think everything with Kent Mansley is hilarious. I think everything that he does, and it's back to what we said before. It's the stereotypical, government agent, the xenophobic, basically psychopath, where his engagement kind of nearly destroys an entire town, which I also think is also kind of a bit of a jab at. And it feels a lot like the monsters on Maple Street, one of the famous Twilight Zone episodes as well. But
yeah, this is very Twilight Zone-ish.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it. Every time I watch it, it feels, because the Twilight Zone is one of my favorite shows ever, and every time I watch The Iron Giant, it feels like it's ripped right out of it, because it's a similar world, it's similar functions and form. But I would say my favorite scene is probably the deer scene. And then what follows after, just because I think it's so powerful. I think when Dean says "you are who you choose to be" is also one of the great moments. The scene that always makes me cry is the end. So basically what happens is where the U.S. government, the general, is finally siding with Dean, siding with Hogarth, siding with his mother, that the Iron Giant is not here to hurt anyone. He wants to help the townspeople. He's already won over the townspeople by saving the two boys earlier. And Kent Mansley refuses to give in to this belief that this giant could be anything other than a threat to the nation, or at least to himself, and launches the nuclear missile from the submarine that was stationed off outside of the waters of Maine. And the nuclear missile is coming down to eradicate the town. And everyone's going into lockdown. Everyone knows what that means. They've talked about duck and cover a few times, especially with the ad that they played during school. But
your desk will save you.
Yeah, everyone knows that it's futile. And when Hogarth says, "When that missile comes down, we all die," and I'm getting chills talking about it right now.
Make Jake cry on the last podcast.
And then the Iron Giant realizes what he has to do, and he says, "You go, I go, you stay, no falling," which is something that they've said before. And then he goes up into the sky and says "Superman," and closes his eyes and stops the missile from landing. That I think is probably my favorite scene in any movie ever, just because I don't think that I've seen a scene better that encapsulates and culminates everything that the film was trying to do prior. Everything that the film is about, everything that the film wanted to be and wanted you to see in those 15 minutes is just a perfect and marvelous job. And then, of course, when the Iron Giant puts himself back together and the music comes back, the global statue is just one of the greatest endings ever. When he smiles at the camera is just, it's a beautiful, and it's a hard movie for me to rewatch consistently because I don't want to keep crying. But I do try to watch it probably 3-4 times a year just to keep it with me, because it's a special thing.
To remember your why.
Yeah.
That's to bring football into this.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, every time I watch it, it feels reaffirming to know that I think that I'm on the right path, because I want to make someone feel the way that I do about this film. And the fact that I've probably seen it 100 times. I'm probably more than that. And the fact that it never gets old, it's still as powerful, it's still as resonant, it still allows you, because every time I watch it, I still think about what it's trying to say. And I think I probably have a pretty good grasp on it at this point, but it allows me to look inward and think about my own agency. What am I capable of doing? What does society, or what do people, or what do even how have I boxed myself in and thought myself as something other than this, and how can I be more than that? And when a film, as you continue to watch it, allows you, and it makes sure that you reckon with the various different questions, existential or otherwise, dealing about what happens next, what choices can you make, it's a special thing when a film does that, and The Iron Giant, I don't think, does it, and no one does it better than The Iron Giant.
I have a very serious question to ask you. It's very important. What makes you more emotional from Vin Diesel? A, Superman. B, family. Or C, we are Groot.
Oh, that's great. No, that's a great question. I mean, I think
he's got these great one-liners.
It's always going to be Superman for me. Although him as Groot is just phenomenal. I think that Vin Diesel doesn't get enough credit because he does land a lot of emotional beats, which I think is a hard thing to do as an actor. And when Paul Walker died, I mean, that was just such a tragic day because he was such a light on this world, and their whole relationship parting ways with the "See You Again" is still one of the great moments of that entire franchise. But to me, it will always be Superman. There's only one movie, well, two. I just watched The Tree of Life, and there was a sequence in there that made me tear up. But to this day, there's no movie that makes me cry consistently or every time I watch it, other than The Iron Giant. And it's just, I think some of that has to do with my attachment to it. And also I think like a lot of the things that the film is trying to say line up with my beliefs. I'm a big believer in choice and agency and responsibility and different things like that. But it's just, it's a masterclass. And if I can make anything as half as good as The Iron Giant, then I think that I will have lived a good life.
I'm excited to see it happen.
Yeah, but
any final thoughts on The Iron Giant before you said there's barely any movies that make you cry, but we're going to try and go for a podcast that makes you cry as we take down our top 5 inside the film room moments.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast before on different episodes. We've referenced it. But if you haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. I think it's only 91 minutes.
It's a crisp 90.
Crisp 90. It's a great watch. It really is a family film, and there's something that you can take away from all of it. I think similar to, films like Zootopia, films like The Incredibles, films like Coco, films like animated films like Spider-Verse that have something for everyone in there. They have something for the kids, they have something for the adults, they have something for both of them, that allow you to sort of walk away with something for every audience member. It's a hard thing to do, and The Iron Giant does it masterfully and far better than anything else I've ever seen. So if you haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. It's
on HBO Max.
Oh, it really is? Okay, great.
That's where I checked it out.
I watch it. I have the Blu-ray. Of course I do. But I urge you to check it out. If you haven't seen it, you will not be disappointed. It is, I think it's my favorite film, one of the best films ever made, regardless of animation or not. So
do it for Jake.
We got to make t-shirts.
Jake. Do it for Jake with the Iron Giant on the pocket.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Check it out.
Let's get down to it. Get the waterworks started. Top 5 inside the film room moments. We're looking back, like Jake said, 2+ years of podcasting, movie reviews. It all started with a little video on Twitter. We'd been doing it before that with our Twitter reviews, just 100 back when it was 140 characters. You kids don't know about that these days. But Jake and I have been doing this for quite some time, and we're going to look back on some of those special moments here. So we're going 5 to 1, top 5 moments, a few honorable mentions as well. Jake, why don't you get us started?
Absolutely. I'll allow you to do your honorable mentions.
Okay.
Most of them are mine. We have the similar ones here. But one of my honorable mentions, which you have on your list, is our Far, Far Away segment. I think just all that was really cool to dive into. And then, of course, the Hereditary review, which And the Upgrade review I thought was really good too. Those are some of the earlier ones that we did. And I think Hereditary was great because we had such like a visceral experience watching it. Mm-hmm. I think similar to Upgrade, we had seen it together and we had loved it, and kind of talking about it after the movie and then talking about it on the podcast was a really cool thing to do. So those are my honorable mentions.
I have a few more to go along with that. I agree with those. Honorable mention, the Mom cast.
That was a great
when we had Michelle and Patty on for Mary Poppins Returns. Great to have those lovely ladies on there. Good time. That was the first episode to kick off season 2. Upside Down, the film room, we did our Stranger Things 3 review. At that time, it was like top 5 movies of the year, basically, that season of Stranger Things. That was a blast to talk about last summer. All of the rewatchables episodes, those have been a blast. Specifically, the other guys with Shaquille Rashad, because he's just an absolute character. And to combine him with the hilarity of that movie, that was a good one. So those are my honorable mentions. Shall we get into the real deal here?
My number 5 is, we did our 2019 Oscars preview with Josh Martin, friend of the pod. Josh is out of our group chat consisting of me, Johnny, and Josh. Josh is the one that has seen the most films.
And Zach. Zach's in the group chat too.
Zach, yeah. So us 4, Josh is the one that has seen the most, and it was great to have his insight on there.
It was really helpful. It was really helpful because it was like Jake and I talking about the main categories. Then we get down into like costume design, and Josh like, well, you see, the past 3 years they've gone with this and this, and to really like have the specificity there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great mind. Great follow on Twitter as well, at Martin on Movies. Check him out. But yeah, that's got to be my 5th one. It was really informative for me. A lot of stuff that I know that I really haven't thought about, and I think every time we talk with Josh, you definitely learn something for sure. So
down in the old studio underground library on campus, putting in work, man.
Work.
My number 5, our review of Holmes and Watson. This is an early review in 2019. The review itself was a lot of fun because that movie was on the lesser side. I believe it's single digits on Rotten Tomatoes. So that was fun to just really like discuss. But also I think this is the first time we kind of branched off into posing a larger question here, because this was the episode where we tried to determine, is Will Ferrell actually funny? We had broken down, diagrammed his filmography basically throughout his career, comparing Rotten Tomatoes scores and Metacritic scores and our own personal opinions, and charting the up and down, the range of his career. So we were trying to get down to the bottom of that question. I don't recall what we settled on. I think it was just I believe if I'm correct here, it was he's a product of his environment, that it depends on the role he plays. But I mean, that was just really fun to kind of, instead of just reviewing a movie or talking about news, we kind of tried to think critically about something, and that was fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 4 was the National Treasure rewatchable that we did. It was our first one. National Treasure is still one of my favorite movies to this day. It's such a great time every time you watch it. Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors too. He's great in that. Everyone is great in it. It was the first time we did a rewatchable, so it was really fun to talk about. And National Treasure gave us a lot of good content, so that's definitely my number 4.
Yeah, that was a blast to do. I know that was one that was like when we were breaking down what we're gonna do for rewatchables. That was like both of us just instantly. That's the one. That's how you started off. So number 4 for me. At the time, this was our longest episode, and it was fitting because it was the longest movie ever, basically. Avengers Endgame review. That was a lot of fun. Obviously, just something that if you can't tell by now, Jake and I are pretty deep into the comic book world, into the MCU. That's like one of our main talking points. So obviously a huge movie for us. We had like our special breaking news episode to break down the trailer. So to see the movie culminate, I mean, the whole experience surrounding that, I mean, you dressing up in your quantum suit to go to the theater, walking through campus with that, The review itself, we did the review on the Inside Carolina podcast as well. That was a lot of fun there. So just like that movie and the surrounding events that came with it that really gave us lots of avenues to explore.
Yeah, Endgame is still probably the best experience I've ever had in a theater. I think that's probably true for everyone. It's just, I mean, yeah, it's great, and it's a great film too. So that definitely makes sense. My number 3 is our Disney bracket with when we worked with Mello and your brother Drew. We first reviewed Incredibles 2, and then we went into our bracket to determine the best Pixar Disney film, and that was so much fun. Just having 4 people on the podcast was great. Just getting into it, talking about it, it was a lot of fun. And I think I ended up with Hercules as my bracket winner, and I think you ended up with Ratatouille, of course.
Yeah, so this is number 2 on my list, so I'll go ahead and talk about it here as well. But this was an all-time episode. It was over the summer, episode 5. So we were really like just getting started. We'd gone through like our first episode was 15 minutes. So like that's how far we've come since then. But this one, having 4 people on it, reviewing Incredibles 2, which was it was a great movie, a lot of fun. But having Fat Mello and my brother Drew on there, like you said, is the 4 of us at the kitchen table in my house in Chapel Hill, just like breaking it all down. So we're talking about the movie, talking about the Pixar bracket. That was like kind of a buzz on social media. And to have Drew there I know you're a Ratatouille fan, but Drew was like right there with me as like greatest Ratatouille movie, like the greatest Pixar movie of all time. So to have him there supporting it with me, and Mello was just kind of the contrarian there against us. So that was a lot of fun. Like you said, just having multiple people on the podcast to really get and especially something as passionate as Pixar. Like people care so much about Disney, classic Disney movies, classic Pixar movies, like to have that energy.
For sure.
So that's number 2 for me, but I got to go back now. My number 3, you touched on it in the honorable mention, but the whole series of Far, Far Away, but specifically the first episode when we did A New Hope, that was something that we kind of did over the summer. So it didn't come out until the fall. We worked on it over the summer to prepare as we're going back through all these the old Star Wars movies, the original ones. So, I mean, I think the whole process of it all, that was when we were like getting together in the podcast studio in Uptown Charlotte. We had the TV screen set up, a whole new logo. We were trying out some stuff with the video. I was just like a process in itself. And I think that was something that we both really like bought into, obviously both passionate about Star Wars. So to do that, to talk about something that we care about so much and just like dive in so deeply, kind of like the Will Ferrell thing, but like obviously within this one particular universe, from the reviews of the movie to like learning about something specific, like exploring what is the Force, what is a lightsaber, how does it work, like each episode to really focus on something. I think that was just something that we can do. Like you could do it with Star Wars, you could do it with Harry Potter, you could do it with, for you, Lord of the Rings, maybe not me, but like just to fully immerse ourselves in that for 10 weeks. That was a blast.
Yeah, it was great. That was so much fun coming back and revisiting and coming away with a much better opinion about the prequels, which was good. So
the spy detective thriller, Attack of the Clones, baby.
Oh, man, yeah. Ian McGregor, what a legend. That's great. My number 2 is our John Wick 3 review, which was still to this day the funniest thing that out of the podcast. We did it with William, your roommate, big John Wick fan. I have all John Wick's number 5 stars on Letterboxd. I would if there was John Wick merchandise, I would buy it. I'm sure that there is, so I'm probably going to look online after this. But John Wick, that whole series, I really consider to be just one big movie, just because they happened so quick right after each other. But our John Wick 3, which is also one of the best times I had in the theater too, is watching John Wick 3. But we finally got to Curse 2, which is great.
Yeah, I was going to say that you're leaving out the main part of why you enjoyed that review so much. That was the first explicit episode.
It's great. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah, you really let it rip. I tried to keep it like maybe PG-13, but you went like hard R, like full R.
I had to give John Wick justice.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been right if we didn't do an explicit one for that.
That's true. You had to. Your profanity matched his like violence.
Yeah.
But I think another thing that we did that was fun there was we did John Wick versus, because it was shortly after Infinity War, or after Endgame. I mean, so it was like John Wick versus Thanos. What about versus Voldemort? And the Baba Yaga was pretty successful in those matchups. So
yeah, he's a legend, all-time cinema legend. So that was definitely the best ones I had.
Yeah, I already hit my number 2. That was the Incredibles episode. So number 1 for you, Jake. What is it?
My number 1 is best movies of the decade. We did that a few weeks ago. Actually, was it 2 months ago now?
Yeah, it all runs together in quarantine.
Yeah, exactly. We did it with Johnny Sobchak, our Southeast regional correspondent. We're inside the film room, the Dune Scooper. So we did that with Johnny, but that was so much fun. I mean, just going back from the 60s to now, talking about why these were our favorite movies, doing the letterbox quiz at the end and learning about like how cinema exploded throughout the years, throughout the decades, learning about what makes it a favorite film for you or for Johnny or for me, and just having that dialogue across the decade was probably the most enjoyable discussion I've had talking about movies, just because of the differences in opinion, and I think the things that we could all take away from it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that quite a bit. Obviously, not the date, I guess, like the old school cinephile as much as you two, but just to be able to like be there hearing you guys talk about it. Like, I feel like I learned so much from that, and I hope that the listeners did too. Like, it was a blast. But my number 1, not a podcast episode, but I'm throwing it all the way back. Tar Heel football, where it all started, in Kenan Stadium, on the field, after a lift, Zach Owens, Jake Lawler on camera breaking down Infinity War. That is where it all started, man. That was shout out to Taylor Vipolis and the Tar Heel football social media team that wanted a video review of that movie. And afterwards, Jake and I go, hey, that was pretty fun. You know, that was a good time. We both love movies. What should we keep doing this? And 2.5 years later,
we did what do we do? We did our first episode in the facility, didn't we?
We actually, that was back when we said,
wasn't it?
We said we're actually here inside the film room in Kenan Stadium. And then we're like, wait, no, these acoustics are terrible. We got to get out of here.
It was good in theory. But that's it. That's our top inside the film room moments. I'll do the farewell speech now.
Man.
Yeah, man. It's this was definitely one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life, working with Zach, putting out these episodes for you guys, all of our incredible guests that we had on the podcast. It's crazy. I mean, I talked about earlier how far this thing has come. You know, we mentioned it as a joke in passing, and now we have like an actual website. I mean, you know, we have 76 episodes. We have articles. We have merchandise. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, the fact that, you know, I think it's really a testament to what people can do if they want to do it, and if they feel like they got to make time for it. And I think that's exactly why I'm stepping away, is just because I know that I have to make time for LA. I have to make time for the next part of my journey. I mean, it's one of those things that it's been a formative experience in my life working with Zach. You know, consider him one of my closest friends for sure. But you know, I know that this thing is going to be in good hands. Zach is going to take the reins for a little bit, and then we're going to have a little unveiling of our next co-host. This is going to who's also really solid. He's a really great guy too. But yeah, I mean, I thank everyone so much for following us along this journey. Inside the Film Room will always be a near and dear place to my heart. I'll be back for guest episodes for sure, especially if I make it big. And Inside the Film Room's getting all the exclusives.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Zach, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. To the audience, thank you so much. I can't wait to see what's next for both me and for the podcast and for the website and for Inside the Film Room in general. So,
yeah, I mean, all of that times 100. I mean, Jake, for those of you who don't know, Jake and I, like I mean, our friend, like Johnny just found out the other day that Jake and I have known each other since he was a sophomore in high school. Like we go back to like 2014, 2015. So to really be able to do this, and like, obviously back then we were friends, but we didn't like know each other like we do now. We didn't have that kind of like relationship that we do now. So, I mean, to be able to do that over a shared passion, we both like, since then we both like loved movies. We would always talk whenever Jake would come up on his recruiting visits to Chapel Hill, we always like get together at a camp and talk about it, or I'd come and see him on the sidelines of the Freak Show or something, and like just like talk about movies was like the thing that brought us together. And obviously since then we've gone much deeper in our relationship as friends outside of just talking about a movie. But I mean, I think that's the power of movies themselves to really like bring people together. That's what they're all about, shared experiences. And I'm just really thankful that Jake and I were able to have this over the last 2.5 years. It's like the end of a Marvel movie. It says Jake Lawler will return.
I will. I absolutely.
So he'll be sure to come by for some guest appearances, some exclusive interviews, first looks at his upcoming major $200 million deal with Netflix. So I'm excited to watch where you go, buddy, and be there supporting you every step of the way for Inside the Film Room.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been a great journey. And to our audience, I want to leave you with this. It's something that I try to leave with everyone that I meet. Zach and I started this because we wanted to. We wanted to do it. We were passionate about it. We cared about it enough. And look where it landed us. I mean, look how far it's gotten. And to everyone out there that is passionate about something, to everyone out there that is passionate about understanding what makes people, what makes life worth living, what makes life valuable. If you have something burning in your heart that you want to go chase it, please. I mean, because there's so many people out there that refuse to chase it because of fear, because of anxiety, because of whatever it may be. And I think fear of failure is the most detrimental thing that you can ever do. It's the most detrimental thing that will haunt you for the rest of your life. And a lot of people say life is too short, and I disagree with that. I think life is too long. I think life is much too long to not do something you'll end up regretting for decades to come. So if you have something that you're passionate about, if you have a passion, if you have something that you want to do, if you're doing something right now that you don't like, and you feel like that there's something else that you could be doing that would make you happy, I urge you to do it with every ounce and with every ounce of my body, with every kind of inch of my soul. I urge you to go pursue your passion, because that's what's going to make the world a better place, is when people are happier doing what they want to do.
You're a real one, Jake Lawler. A legendary Inside the Film Room first ballot Hall of Famer, Jake Lawler.
Well, I'm glad there's only like 5 people to choose. I'm glad I made it, but yeah, I mean, it's been great though. It's been quite the journey.
It has been. Well, thank you again. Thank you for everything. Thank you to the audience. Be sure to follow us on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook at Inside Film Room. Be sure to like and subscribe, rate and review 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. And like Jake said, be back for the next episode. I'm taking the reins for a little bit, going to do a new project that will be announced in the coming days, weeks, to keep you guys excited as we transition into this next phase of Inside the Film Room. Jake, thank you. Love you, buddy. Best co-host there ever was.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All love on this side. Appreciate everybody. Looking forward to seeing what's next.